A very well-known insurance company just told a room full of therapists that 60 minutes of their time is now worth the same as 45 minutes of their time. And my question isn't why Aetna did that, it's why are we surprised that they did? Now, for the record, this isn't just an Aetna conversation. This is actually something that I am seeing more and more insurance companies do. This is a pattern, and it's something that I've been talking about for a long time. If you've watched any of my old videos or have seen my trends to watch for 2026, I'm not shocked at all. Whenever insurance companies see room or opportunity to flatten rates out, they're going to flatten those rates out. They've been doing this for years by simply not even giving you a raise. And when the platforms see an opportunity to get a little bit more margin, they're going to go for that too. Not only is the therapist not at the table when they're making these decisions, they are the first person to feel the cut. But I'm going to tell you, that's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is that most private practice owners have holes in their pockets and they don't even know about it. These holes were there before Aetna made this move, and they're going to be there after. Yes, the external threat to your business is real. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. But the internal one, that's the one that's probably so sneaky you don't even know that it's happening. And that is what this episode is about. Welcome back to Peace and Profit for Therapists. My name is Calvalyn Day. I am your host, a private practice strategist for therapists who are looking to start, grow, or scale their business, solo or group, and they want to do that without overwhelm and while building a good life as well. When I saw this letter had come out for everyone that was credentialed with Aetna through Alma, I was not remotely surprised, a little bit disappointed, and I felt a lot of compassion for people who weren't expecting this to come. When you think about the way businesses run and how most business owners think about their business, they're always looking for where they can squeeze out another dollar because that gives them more breathing room to either pad their pockets or cover for contingencies that might come up. And unfortunately, most of the practice owners that I know are not doing that, and they are losing money every day. Last week, I slept in a little longer than I normally would, and so I was late getting in my workout, which wasn't a huge deal because I knew I didn't have a ton that I needed to get done that day and, kind of a lighter schedule for the week. And so I decided I was going to just throw on some, comfy leggings, drop the kids off where they needed to go, and I would come back and shower and change and get started with my day. In full transparency, pulled some old leggings out of the closet that I hadn't worn in a while and did not pay attention to the fact that they were probably a little worse for wear than what I would normally put on. When I came back from doing drop off, I looked around, I was like, man, it looks like it's getting ready to rain. My grass was looking terrible. So I decided I'm going to go ahead and cut the grass real quick. And long story short, I have my cell phone in my right pocket and I'm pulling it in and out as I'm cutting the grass, going through my, songs to make the grass cutting go faster, and all is well. When I'm getting ready to put the lawnmower away, I pull out my phone, but I put it in my left pocket. That's important. So I'm, taking off the battery and putting it back on the charger and doing all the thing. The phone falls out. That's weird. Why is that happening? I must not have put it all the way in my pocket. So I pick it up off the ground, look at it. It's fine. Thank God. Put it back in my pocket. And I go back to doing what I'm doing, and it falls out again. And I think that is so weird. What is happening here? Am I losing my mind? I can't figure out how to put my phone in my pocket. And I reach down and realize, oh no, Calvalyn, there is a giant hole in your pocket about the size of a cell phone. Now, all the while I had been putting the cell phone in my right pocket, everything was fine. It wasn't until I went to use that left pocket that I realized that the hole had been there all along. Now, whether or not you have any leggings with holes in the pockets, I want you to stop right now and think about whether or not you have a business hole in the pocket. That means you're doing the work, you're showing up like you normally would, but at the end of every single month, there is less and less money in your account than you think there should be. Maybe less money than there used to be. You're curious about what's happening. Maybe you have theorized that you need more clients on the books, or you recognize that, hey, other things have started to cost more money. Maybe you're starting to see, claims taking longer to process, or people who have higher copays or deductibles, and occasionally their credit cards get declined. All of these things are very real parts of a business, and these essentially holes in your pocket make it so that when a company like Aetna decides they're going to cut your hourly rate by 10 or 20%, you might be actually nearing the brink of bankruptcy. And I want to be honest with you, this is not a hustle problem. Hustle is not going to solve this. This is a structural problem, just like that hole in my pocket wasn't something that hustle was going to outrun. Now, according to the APA, 62% of psychologists actually are in network with at least one insurance company, which means that the vast majority of us are, in fact, susceptible to the potential that an insurance company could tank your business. Our practice felt this pinch about 6 or 7 years ago as I was starting to take over as the fractional executive. One of the things that we realized is that about 70 to 80% of our revenue came from one insurance company, which meant that if that one insurance company decided that they wanted to cut their rates or end our contract overnight, we would lose 70 to 80% of our revenue, which is so dangerous. And a lot of states are like that. The majority of the state might be with one panel or another, maybe split between a couple of panels with a few others sprinkled in there. So that's not that uncommon. But when a company like Aetna decides to unilaterally shift from paying out 90837 at the current 53-minute rate as a 90834, the current 30 to 45-minute rate, that has the potential to really wreak havoc on your bottom line. Now, this did happen with one particular provider, but I want to be honest, this is not an isolated event. We talked about the consolidation in healthcare on this podcast. I'll link a couple of different episodes around this one so you can check that out. This has happened with Headway before. This happened with Optum and United Healthcare before. This is a clear pattern, a clear indication that the platforms, which have thrown a lot of money into building out and development, they are absolutely coming for everything that they invested and then some. And what's happening right now is the insurers are testing the market to see what will be acceptable. And in some cases, some of these changes have experienced some pushback. And so things have either been, paused or slowed down or rolled back entirely. So you do have some autonomy to kind of push back on this, but it's important to remember that you have the right as a business owner to have some control and autonomy over your business. Now, for most people, the solution is not to go completely cash pay. The goal is to stop assuming that the external landscape is stable. I can remember 16 years ago when our practice opened, getting on panel, getting in network was the way to have a stable business. That's not the case anymore. It can be a part of your stability plan, but it is not the only plan. And the plan, in my opinion, starts by identifying where there might be holes in your pocket. I'm going to give you 3 that are the most common ones that I see, and I'm going to tell you the truth. They all really root to the same exact place. They root to a private practice owner who is too busy or overwhelmed managing all of the day-to-day operations to pay attention to all of the small details. Some research suggests that it might take as many as 7 to 10 hours of administrative and management tasks, not even including documentation, to actually operate a practice. One of the things that's so hard for people outside of the mental health field to understand is that a caseload of 15 to 20 clients really is a full-time caseload because of those additional 7, 10, or as many as 15 hours when you include documentation worth of hours that are necessary as you're doing the other kind of business side of things. That means if you are spending 2 full days on paperwork and documentation and 3 full days holding space for your clients, you really are working a full-time week. The challenge is you don't get paid for that documentation. You don't get paid for that administrative work. And so oftentimes what happens is when people are trying to make a little bit more money or make up for that margin, those paperwork and documentation things kind of fall to the bottom of the list. The things that I'm going to talk about today are things that you want to definitely make sure that you review to keep as much money in your practice as you possibly can. Hole number 1, underbilling, poor documentation, and clawbacks. These are big ones, and they're all about insurance. Underbilling is a very quiet and chronic, but cumulative issue that comes up for a lot of practice owners. To be honest, the underbilling and the clawbacks are actually kind of connected because often they're rooted by the same problem, which is that your documentation doesn't justify what you're actually delivering. So let's go back to our Aetna example. So the difference between a 90837 and a 90834 is not just the number of minutes that you were with the client. It's actually about the documented necessity for that additional time. You can assume that lots of insurance companies either already do or will start to really consider that 90837, that 53-minute session, as an extended session, which means they want to see why you needed to talk for longer time. If you're rushing through your notes or you're behind on your notes and you put together, you can pull together 2 or 3 things that you can kind of remember, but you don't have a clear medical necessity, it is much easier for them to claw back. And I want you to know this. You probably haven't read it, but there's a line in most contracts with insurance companies that says, if they pull your claims for a particular period of time, and this is state specific because some states have limited this, right? And you have a certain percentage of your notes that were wrong, they can actually claw back that same percentage of all your claims. So let's say you are in network with Anthem and you're in a state that allows for a full year of clawbacks. Let's say that they request one particular client's record and they note that in 40% of those sessions, you do not have documented medical necessity for those sessions. They can claw back 40% of those sessions for that client. But they can also say, you know what? We want 40 of every single session that you have billed us for that same period of time. Now, you can appeal and you can, haggle it out. You can try and do an extended payment plan, but they are well within their legal right to enforce the contract and expect to recoup that within 30 days. Could you afford that? Probably not. So if you have gotten into a habit of maybe copying the previous session notes without a meaningful update, and they are using AI to scroll through those notes, you're going to likely trigger a potential audit and a clawback. There's some research that suggests that practices can actually lose 10 to 20% in their annual revenue strictly because of preventable billing errors, missed appeals, and underpayments. For most practice owners, that's your profit. So you go from being a peaceful and profitable practice down to one that's breaking even. If you're losing any other revenue anyplace else, now you're actually in the red. When I sit down with private practice owners in a practice revenue diagnostic session, we don't just look at how much money you want to make and talk about how we can get you there. We look at where money is being lost. On a recent session, I met with a practice owner who had a clinician who had stopped accepting copays. Her client had shared that she was in a financial bind. And the clinician said, well, you're so sweet. You always work with the client. So I just assumed you would be okay with it. Not realizing that not only was that not okay from the financial side, it also constituted potential insurance fraud because of the contract that you have to collect those copays. She didn't realize that not only had that been happening for a short period of time, but when she went back and audited after our conversation, that it had been happening for months. Having this 90-minute session with me where we deep dive and I use my eyes to spot things that I've seen before actually can create a significant return on your investment. And when we're coming to those documentation things, it's important that you are clearly articulating the value of the session. And that might also include things like periodically doing progress monitoring or screening tools. Some insurance companies will actually allow you to charge for those, not a lot, but even $5 or $6 by administering a PHQ-9 can actually help your bottom line. And then you want to document what you've done. So here's a couple examples for documentation. Client continues to present with insert specific symptoms that significantly impairs insert their specific functional domain. Necessitating ongoing therapeutic intervention to prevent deterioration. That line, prevent deterioration, is huge because that is saying I am preventing and protecting this from getting worse, such as having to go inpatient to an ER, et cetera, et cetera. Here's another example. Session extended to 53 minutes to address acute distress related to specific concern. Extending duration was clinically indicated to stabilize client and develop a safety and coping plan prior to session close. Again, all of those buzzwords are clearly indicating to an AI tool that you actively considered going with the lower rate and opted to the higher rate. Now, if this is something that you are saying like, ooh, we don't have any of these in our routine, I have a freebie for you. I have a gift for you to help you with this. I want you to click the link around this episode to get a download of 10 specific phrases that you can use to make sure that you are accurately documenting what you're doing and hopefully so that you can get paid for the time that you're actually spending with your client. Okay. Hole number 2, not leveraging those community relationships and partnerships. Most practice owners are shouting into a big giant room of potential clients without leveraging the relationships with the community partners that they already have. It is so much easier to sell someone who already knows, likes, and trusts you than it is to find somebody random and convert them to a potential client. And when you borrow the credibility of somebody who already knows, likes, and trusts you, that's the cheat code. So rather than only spending your marketing energy to the general public, make sure that you look to leverage those relationships that you already have. This isn't just about networking, it's about intentionally creating relationships, kind of like relationship architecture, so to speak. Who in your community has regular, trusted access to the clients that you most want to work with? What does it look like to be a resource that they would send people to? As companies look at how they are going to decrease costs and reduce some of the expenses that they have, a lot of times they're looking for unique solutions. Sometimes small to mid-sized nonprofits will actually pay you to become their in-house EAP because it's actually cheaper for them and they like having somebody local that they know they can work with. Think about an OBGYN practice in your community. Maybe they would love to have somebody on site one afternoon a week or a couple afternoons per week. They'll give you a free space. You get the benefit of not being telehealth constantly, and you've got built-in clients, and maybe they'll even help you with the billing part. This can sometimes happen with primary care doctors as well, but I can think of chiropractic offices where this might work. Heck, this might even work with a, cosmetology suite, fitness centers, dietitians, maybe that specialize in eating disorders, endocrinologists or doctors that are working with clients who are getting GLP-1s. All of these might be places where they would be more than happy to have somebody who's either in-house or a ready referral. What tends to happen with these offices, particularly the ones that are specialty, is that they'll refer to the same place over and over again, and then that person gets a wait list, and they don't have time to go out and vet somebody else. So they might just be waiting for somebody to say, hey, I'll be your person. But occasionally, this can even become a more specific partnership where you become a contracted service. So corporate wellness, group programming, speaking, training, all of these types of things can come from these initial relationships. Our practice has leveraged these into literally millions of dollars, with contracts ranging from 4 figures all the way up to 6 over multiple years. When you're not leveraging the relationships and the reputation you've built in your own community, you really are having a hole in your pocket. You're losing money, you're leaving money on the table, whatever kind of visual you need to see to know that there is an opportunity for you here. And the benefit is that more times than not, this is your cash pay rate. So it's not fighting with an insurance company. It's not worrying about that documentation or the clawbacks. It is you sometimes getting a retainer or an automatic payment that allows you to know what's coming in. And these are the kind of things that have allowed our office to offer a higher pay rate for our clinicians because the insurance rates are not going up, but we can make our cash pay rate commensurate with what we need to charge, and that gives us a little bit more breathing room. And the last hole is the one that you've probably identified because it's the one that most practice owners have. And this is having a business model that is only tied to one-to-one services. When your practice is banking on a certain number of 53-minute sessions per week, you're always at risk because at any given moment, your client may cancel, someone may get sick, or something may change. So the whole here is really the missed opportunity of you saying, what is it that I can do that would serve my client more completely? Would my clients who are being seen on a biweekly basis really benefit from adding Voxer coaching? Would my clients who are struggling with their marriage benefit from some digital resources that they can access at home? Would the clients, the children that I'm working with or the teens that I'm working with benefit from a social skills group a couple times per month? I always think about the summer months, right? A lot of people talk about the summer slump, but whether it is parents who are home with their kids or kids who are going to a summer camp or some type of out of school time programming, that's a perfect place for you to show up and offer a particular resource. Whether you're offering some, training for the staff or a, periodic service or group for the participants, there might be places for you to do both. I call that your leverage point. It's taking the skills that you already have and using them in a unique way that takes you out of that one-to-one model, creating more revenue for you, but also more freedom and flexibility. This is the kind of thing that we can definitely look at in your practice revenue diagnostic. We sit down for 90 minutes. We look at all the numbers. I get lots and lots of information. I hold space for your feelings, all that fear, all that anxiety, all that uncertainty. And I look with clear eyes at what is possible. And I don't just leave you with hope and motivation. On average, when people leave the practice revenue diagnostic session, we find at least $10,000. And this might be through identifying leaks like holes in the pocket where money is just being lost. But other times it's through missed revenue opportunities where they identify that, oh yeah, there was this person in my, previous employer that I think could be a particular potential contract for me. I've had people make as much as $4,000 or $5,000 in new client enrollments within 30 days. So it really is an investment in your business that generally can come back with a really great return, sometimes in a short period of time. Each month, I open up a few of these practice revenue diagnostic slots. I don't have a time for a ton of them because they are really intensive, and the report that I generate for you and all those things does take a little bit extra time. So, somewhere around this episode, there'll be a link for you to check out how many sessions are available this month and get one if you choose. Now, back to the leggings. So I actually opted to get rid of those leggings because they're old enough that I think they had gotten all the wear out of them that I really needed to. But there's a good chance you don't need to throw your business away. We just need to figure out where the leaks are and patch them. And we might even be able to reinforce that pocket so it's a little stronger than it was before. If you are worried that this is the tip of the iceberg and that Aetna is a sign of more things to come, and you're not really sure that your practice can withstand the heat, do yourself a favor and sign up for that practice revenue diagnostic. That initial instinct to just work harder, put more clients on the calendar, or raise your rates, even though you haven't gotten a cash pay client in months or maybe years, those things are not the fix that you think they are. But I promise you, there really is probably a fix that is sitting right in plain sight. It's just hard to see when you're in it. That's where I come in. Over the last couple of years, with increases in all of the expenses of running a practice and none of the insurance company rates, one of the things that I have seen is that people have cut and cut and cut till there's almost nothing left to cut at all. And then I started seeing people add more and more sessions to their books, opening up spots, giving up their Fridays that they used to use for documentation and administration. With moves like this from Aetna and some of the other companies that might follow, just cramming your books full is not the way you want to go. I don't want you tired and broke. You got licensed, you built a practice, you're serving your clients. You deserve peace and profit. Let me help you find your hole and plug it, because around here, peace and profit are not in competition. You get to have them both.